if they happen to get sick, they almost never go to a hospital in their own country.
Hello and welcome back to Soros OK. This is a podcast created to understand, learn, and demystify life in Africa and African lives. Thank you so much for joining back and tuning in to another episode. Today we are diving into a topic that I've actually wanted to talk about and really discuss in great detail for a while now. I think this topic is actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to start this podcast and really understand the conflict in detail from an authentic source. And so, today the topic is going to be diving into the current conflicts and ongoing events in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And today, joining me will be Maurice.
My name is Maurice Carney. I'm one of the co-founders of Friends of the Congo, and I currently serve as the organization's executive director.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. For anyone that's listening in that's never heard of the Congo or anything to do with the Congo at all, what's like an idea or what picture or memory would you like to paint to them first of what is the Congo?
Well, I'll answer the question. Let me say first, our organization, Friends of the Congo, is a Pan-African solidarity institution, and with two overarching aims. One is to raise global consciousness about what's transpiring in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The second is to provide support to local institutions, those that are on the front lines, whether it's at the front lines of the conflict in the east of the country, front lines of the rainforest in the northeast of the country, front lines in the mining areas in the southeast of the country, or the front lines in the urban areas in the west and the city of Kinshasa's population of 14 million. So we mobilize global support for those on the front lines who are confronting the challenges, the various challenges of the Congo. The Congo is, oh my goodness, it's in our consciousness, whether we know it has been central to our history as a people, of African people, for the past 500 years, at least that part of our tragedy, where Europeans trafficked Africans from the continent to the Americas. According to studies that have been done by Emory University and UNESCO, Emory University here in the United States, almost half of the Africans who were trafficked from the continent to the Americas came out of the Congo region, the Central Africa region. In fact, they say 4 out of 10. And this is starting from the early 1500s to the 1800s. And by the time we get to the 1800s, we see Congo's centrality looming large again at the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference, also known as the Congo Conference, where Congo was such a special prize for Europeans as they carved up the continent and divided up the magnificent cake, as they call it. Congo was given to King Leopold II of Belgium as his own personal property. It was dubbed a Congo Free State so that European powers could have access in terms of free commerce and free movement. So for all of us as Africans, people of African ancestry, we see that Congo has been central to two major and fundamental periods in our history. The trafficking of Africans, the so-called transatlantic slave trade, and the carving up of the African continent, the establishment of European powers establishing their spheres of influence on the continent. We see the heart of the continent. If you envision or you liken the continent to a body, Congo is the heart, right? It's a country the size of Western Europe, straddling the equator, bordered by 9 other African countries, unlike any country on the continent. Congo is the only one that has that many countries bordering it. So it's not only central and pivotal historically, as I've articulated in terms of the so-called transatlantic slave trade in terms of the colonial or European powers establishing their spheres of influence on the African continent, but also contemporarily as it relates to the future of the African continent. And if you carrying on in that historic path, right, we talked about the slave trade, we talked about colonialism, the anti-colonial movement, Congo was central again. When Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré and Modibo Keita, they organized around the idea of the United States of Africa, Pan-Africanism. They saw Congo as being central to that undertaking, right? They invited the likes of Patrice Lumumba to the All African People's Conference in 1958 in Accra. And there, Patrice Lumumba established a really strong bond with Kwame Nkrumah. And when Kwame Nkrumah wrote his The Challenge of Congo, he shared that he and Lumumba had an agreement that Congo would serve as the capital of the United States of Africa, right? And logically so, because of its strategic location, because of its spectacular wealth, because of the type of resources it has in its soil, because of its bounty, both in agriculture and energy. It would serve as the engine that would drive the principal locomotive that would drive the industrialization of the African continent. So for us as Africans, at home and abroad, if we're talking about a freedom, sovereignty, liberation, if we're talking about our 500-year tragic history, or what our sister Marimba Ani called the Maafa, then we would have to talk about the Congo. We would have to take Congo into consideration. So that would be the primary, or at least an initial takeaway that we'd like for people to have when they think about the Congo, how it's central to us as Africans in our journey, in our march towards a free and liberated Africa.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very enlightening, and I think for myself, I didn't know the centrality of Congo and the significance towards in Africa, especially. But it's very important to know that it's essentially the heart of Africa, geographically
Literally and
and
figuratively.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so kind of like the next question would be on, okay, what is currently going on? What is kind of like your brief overview of the current affairs, and then we can kind of delve into each one as much as we can, obviously. Time permitting.
Sure. There are two things that I will address. There's a lot going on, but two things. One, I'll segue from the centrality of Congo to African liberation, to the centrality of Congo to the planet, right? The Congo is vital as it relates to two dominant phenomena of our time, right? One is the climate crisis, and combating the climate crisis. Congo is a part of the Congo Basin rainforest, which is the second largest rainforest in the world. It's often referred to as the second lung of the world. And it is indispensable to combating the climate crisis. Although it's the second largest rainforest in the world behind the Amazon, if you combine all the rainforests, the tropical rainforests, Congo produces more or sequesters more carbon than all of the tropical rainforests combined, right? So although second in size, it's first in importance in terms of sequestering carbon. In addition to that, it's home to the largest tropical peatlands in the world. The peatlands in the Congo Basin is about the size of England. And it's a veritable carbon bomb. Now, the reason I say that is peatlands are an area where sediment, foliage have accumulated over millennia, and carbon is trapped in the soil. Therefore, it has to be protected and preserved. And if it's not, the carbon will release in the air. And the carbon that's trapped in the peatlands in the Congo basin is equivalent to about 20 years of pollution that comes from the burning of fossil fuels in the United States, alone. So preserving, protecting the peatlands and the rainforest overall is critical. Congo looms large in that regard. By the same token, as we enter into green energy transition and the so-called clean energy transition, we see Congo playing an outsized role again, where it's a transition that is powered by batteries, rechargeable batteries. And in order for rechargeable batteries to function, there's a critical ingredient in them called cobalt. Cobalt is vital to the functioning of rechargeable batteries. And Congo produces 70% of the world's cobalt. That is to say that if you were to add up all of the countries in the world, right, if you were to add up all of the countries in the world, they would not produce the amount of cobalt that the Congo produces. Right? So, on both these key phenomena for our time, combating the climate crisis, facilitating a green energy transition, a clean energy transition, Congo is central. So that's part of the current phenomena in terms of as we relate to the Congo. Now, we've seen people talk about the genocide that's unfolding in the Congo. This is a product of a over quarter century war of aggression and plunder that's been spearheaded by US and UK allies, proxies, agents, primarily Rwanda and its leader Paul Kagame, Uganda and its leader Yoweri Museveni. They both invaded the Congo twice, in 1996, again in 1998. The 1998 invasion triggered what the United Nations says is the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II. And over that 30-year period, even though the war officially ended in 2002 and 2003, both countries have sponsored militia groups inside of the Congo that has destabilized the Congo for the past quarter century, while both countries plunder the Congo of its coltan and its tin, its diamonds and its gold and its timber. And while they've been doing that, the Congo, we've seen an estimated 6 million Congolese perish, half of them children under the age of 5. So that is the context in which the recent instability is taking place. Now, that instability, that ongoing conflict, is embedded in a deeper, longer tradition, right, or history of theft, right? Because the country, when it was designed, the modern form of the Congo, 1884, 1885, coming out of the Berlin Conference, it was designed for extraction, right? At the time, it was rubber, right? Where King Leopold II extracted rubber and to some extent ivory for a 23-year period. And that extractive process over the 2 decades resulted in the population being decimated by half. Estimated 10 million Congolese perished. So the current crisis, almost 30-year war of aggression and plunder, where African nations have joined in the robbing of the Congo. They've basically gotten into bed with Europeans in stealing Congo's wealth for their petty personal benefits and also for the larger benefits of the Western nations and the empire. So that is the context in which we see the Congo today. A country that's still, for all intents and purposes, serving as a colonial outpost for extraction of natural resources. And within the context of that, a war of aggression that's been backed a quarter century war of aggression and plunder that's been backed by Western countries and couldn't happen and couldn't sustain itself without the financing, the arming, the training, the provision of intelligence.
Mm-hmm. No, that was so insightful. I've made some notes from kind of like what you've mentioned, and I would like to go through it as well. So I think some definitions and stuff that we can further explain. But I actually wanted to first read this quote from this book called Cobalt Red: How the Blood of Congo Powers Our Lives. So
Yeah.
it says, yeah, there's a frenzy taking place, Democratic Republic of Congo, a manic race to extract as much cobalt as possible. The rare silvery metal is an essential component to almost every lithium rechargeable battery made today. Few nations are blessed with a more diverse abundance of resources richer than the Congo. No country in the world has been more severely exploited. So, Canada really aligns with a lot of what you've already mentioned, and obviously regarding cobalt. And I wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit further. My question is, so you've mentioned that Africans are now stealing actually and going along with a lot of the Western powered and ideologies and stealing. Why do you think this is the case? Why are we so Congo is so rich with resources? How come its benefit is not being like benefited by the African continent itself?
Well, for a host of reasons, right? The continent as a whole is really is a neocolonial outpost. And as a part of that, the leaders that we see on the continent are a product of that neocolonial system, right? Because those independence leaders, those free Africa leaders, let's say, they were either overthrown or assassinated by the West, right? There's a film out entitled "Concerning Violence," and you see the type of violence that was been used in order to eradicate and deracinate authentic, organic African leadership that prioritizes Africa first. So, and in its stead, we've seen these agents of neocolonialism. So, because of the neocolonial system and the agents who have been imposed on the African people, we see that what they do is they serve. They call them the compradors, the elites. They serve to extract the wealth of Africa and channel it towards the metropole, channel it towards the West, right? So that's one structural factor, and this really they've come in to manage, right? To manage a system that's based on extractivism, exploitation, a colonial system, right? So you have these new managers coming in to manage a system that Kwame Nkrumah calls neocolonialism. He coined the phrase neocolonialism,
Do
right?
you mind defining what that means for anyone that's
Basically
might
means
be?
that you have leaders, right, who are in head of states in African countries that, uh, for all appearances, control the levers of government, right?
Mhm.
They get to be president and prime ministers and legislators and parliamentarians, but they don't control the economy. The economic affairs of the countries is basically governed by the West, by outsiders. The prices for the raw materials in those countries are not set by those leaders, right? They're set by people in the West. And as these managers are in place, the compradors, they assure that they benefit personally, their families benefit, and maybe even their tribe, right? For managing the basically the shipping out, the extracting of those resources to power global industries. And they really don't focus much on uh, aggregating those resources so that those resources can be used for the benefit or for the development of their own countries, like the roads, electricity, schools, hospitals. And a clear sign of this is if they happen to get sick. They almost never go to a hospital in their own country. They wind up going for health care outside of their country to Europe, right? So something as critical as your own personal health, they're so bought and sold to the West that they don't even invest in the infrastructure in their own country. If they get a heart attack in the middle of the night, they could actually be whisked off to a hospital that could take care of them. No, they actually go go to the West, right, to get care. And the president of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, he did just that. He was just in Belgium getting care because he had a major health issue. Right? So that's why that's
You know,
neocolonialism, right?
mm-hmm.
That's the essence of neocolonialism there.
So just someone might be listening to this and might say, actually, I disagree because aren't we the African community countries voting for these people to be elected to become president?
Oh, oh, I mean, I would just point them to look at recent developments in West Africa, in Niger, in Ivory Coast, in Mali. The voting. What are you voting for, right? You these votes. I can hardly think of any of them that are free and fair, where the will of the people are represented. Take the Congo, for example. In 2018, the Congo had an election. Uh, by all accounts, the person who won the election did not assume the presidency. The person who assumed the presidency assumed it as a result of a deal between the former president, the United States, European Union, France, and a few others. So the votes didn't matter; they were cast aside. And the leader that the West agreed would be in power, that person was put in power. So we see, I mean, there's just so many examples: constitutional coups, elections that are not free and fair. And usually, the West comes behind those processes to back them up. The person who winds up winning, quote unquote, is usually a person who's backed up by the West. What happens is that the United States and France and others, they put their thumb on the scale, all right? And it's only when the people rise up, like we saw in Senegal, when Abdoulaye Wade, for example, I think it's 2010, 2011, wanted to stay in power beyond his mandate. The people rose up, right? Or recently, when Macky Sall in Senegal wanted to stay in power, the people rose up. He jailed his opposition, even the people, jailed the opposition, but there was so much pressure that he had to concede and actually hold elections. So we see this time and time again, and uh, just about all of the African countries, but certainly in those countries that are under the influence of France, we see that the vote on the part of the people really, more times than not, do not count.
Mm-hmm. So then, so if we go back to what's currently going on in Congo and the cobalt issue, so
Hmm.
are we saying that because of the people in the political powers, this
Hmm.
issue with cobalt will continue to affect and conflict the country until we have a new president, or it is up to the people, the community, to kind of create a stop to this?
Yeah, until people organize, until the masses organize in a way that they can control the affairs of the country, meaning that they can assure that they can apply pressure to whoever is in power or even put up someone that's going to represent their interests. And if that person or that class of leadership doesn't represent their interests, that they have the wherewithal to dispose of them, right? So that is when we'll see the type of change that's needed that would end the exploitation, end the conflict, end the robbery, and result in Congolese controlling their land, controlling their resources, controlling their wealth, and ultimately controlling their own affairs. So that's why we're organizing with folks on the front lines in the Congo who are of this mindset, organizations who are of this worldview that they have to control and determine the affairs of the Congo. And we're rallying people around the world to come to their side, especially considering the forces that are arrayed against the people, right? Major global forces. We have neighboring countries like Rwanda and Uganda invaded the Congo twice. You have foreign governments, United States, United Kingdom, France, the European Union, Belgium, all of whom support and back those neighboring countries that are destabilizing the Congo and got the Congolese people caught in a death trap. So foreign governments. Then you have multinational corporations all up and down the supply chain, from Glencore on the ground in the Congo, or Banro, right up to Tesla and Apple and all of those companies that were sued in the United States for using child labor in the Congo. And then you have multilateral organizations, institutions like the International Monetary Fund and its sister arm, the International Finance Corporation, that's got investments in mines in the Congo, or the World Bank, who wrote the mining laws for the Congo and wrote it in the interest of private capital and foreign international finance capital, right? That's how they wrote the mining laws. And then, of course, you have the local elites, the comprador class, those who benefit from being rent seekers, from being managers, from being agents of neocolonialism, where they're able to stack their papers, so to speak, for their own benefit, eat for their own benefit at the
Mhm.
expense of the people. So you have all of these forces working against the Congolese people. So we're saying with that, that's why we need to mobilize the people. The equalizer is the oppressed working class of the world coming to the side of the Congolese people, being in solidarity with them as they confront these forces in an attempt for them to control and determine their own affairs, in an attempt for them to strengthen their institutions so that they can protect their interests.
So, in a previous episode that I spoke regarding Sudan, we mentioned how, to the outside eye, it kind of looks like African people are fighting each other. So, when you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned regarding foreign countries, neighboring countries like Rwanda, Uganda, why are they working to destabilize Congo? When what is their benefit? So, is it essentially just Africans fighting each other?
No, it's a geostrategic battle. Africa is the richest continent on the planet. So you have outside forces that are coming in, and they're going to strengthen the the people who have signed off to serve their interests, right? So I'll give you a classic example. In the Congo, in the 1960s, there's a book called Chief of Station Congo, written by the Chief of Station of the CIA. So he lays out how he corrupted local elites, right? He created what they call the Binza boys, and pitted the Binza boys against Lumumba, right? So the Binza boys, they were, like the folks like Mobutu, they were concerned about their personal interests, personal wealth, greed, right? Personal advancement, status, right? That was their concern. They didn't care about the nation as a whole or the Congolese people writ large. So when these people are profiled by institutions like the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, and then they're backed up, then they become a force that basically too strong for the patriots, for those who are concerned about African interests, to confront. So it wouldn't happen. It couldn't happen without the backing of the West. So people see it as Africans fighting against Africans, and shoot, just imagine, right? Imagine in the United States if there was a greater power on January 6, 2021, that was to come and support Donald Trump in his attempt to hold on to power, right? How would that have turned out if Donald Trump was still over assumed had the leadership of the United States with the backing of a major foreign power, right? So that's the difference between the United States and the UK. The elections and processes are relatively free, except for the the corporate intervention, right? The politicians are bought by the corporations. But in Africa, because there's just such a disparity in power and resources, the West can go in and shape the future of the country for decades, right? As
Okay.
they did in the Congo.
Mhm. So I wanted to quickly touch on the fact that what you guys are doing in front of the Congo, you're really working with people on the front line, communities, people with like-minded thinking, with the benefit of African mind to kind of like organize them and kind of have a people power, right? So
Yes,
do you think that will work in a sense that is there this has been going on for years, essentially, this whole
decades.
decades, yes. So do you think we're just now getting people that have Africans interest in mind, or do we have like any newer information that you think now we can gather people and now we can take the steps that's needed to really take the power into our own hands? So essentially what I'm trying to get at is what has changed through these decades?
Hmm. What has changed, right, in the last year is global consciousness. The genocide that Israel is perpetrating against Palestinians in Palestine has triggered the consciousness of an entire generation of Gen Zs and millennials. And they are curious, inquiring about not only what's unfolding in Palestine, but what's unfolding in Sudan, what's unfolding in Congo, and seeing the role that global elites play in the instability in different parts of the world: Congo, Haiti, Palestine, Sudan. So, this awakening of conscious on the part of this generation has opened up a range of possibilities whereby, for example, Congolese on the front lines, they can now reach out to comrades, for allies, and there'll be uh, a critical mass of folks coming to their side. It wasn't the case before. What was happening in the Congo lingered in relative obscurity, right, for a whole host of reasons. But we see an awakening, and we're hopeful that we can leverage and maximize this awakening to the benefit of our brothers and sisters on the front line in the heart of the African continent.
Okay. Okay, I really have strong faith towards this, and I really commend the work that you're doing, and
Thank
I
you.
do tell people, I will tell people and put your link of your Instagram page in the
Please.
descriptions, and I do commend people to join your live sessions. They're really engaging and insightful. Just to round up here, I always kind of ask questions on what action points do you have? And I feel like we've been talking about Africa and African countries for decades. And a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time it's just talk about potential, but no
Yeah.
action, right? What
Mm-hmm.
action points do you have for the listener that you would like them to do take on board after listening to you today?
Sure, sure. Several things, at least for those that we can state publicly. There's some that we can't state publicly, but if you spend some time with us and you get more involved, you'll get to those. But initially, we'll share with folks, go to freecongo.org. Freecongo.org. There are three action steps on the site. You have an opportunity to donate. You have an opportunity to send a letter if you're in the United States to members of Congress, demanding that they stop using our tax dollars to fuel conflict in the Congo, pretty much in the same vein that we're demanding that the US government stop using our tax dollars to fuel genocide in Palestine. Same model, same principle. And the third action is to sign up. You can join the movement. And in joining the movement, you can state how you would like to join the movement. There's a list of options there. So those are three actions people can take by going to freecongo.org. In addition to that, we encourage everyone to join us for the global teaching on the Congo. October 13th through 19th, called Congo Week. They can go to congoweek.org to sign up. Click on the events calendar. They can sign up to be a part of the global teach-in. When you go to sign up, it gives you a number of options as to how you can be a part of Congo Week. So those are the ways we recommend that people immediately get involved, in addition to what you just shared, by encouraging them to go to sign up to our social media handles, which are at Congo Friends. You can go to at Congo Friends on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all at Congo Friends, and you can be in communication with us on these multiple platforms.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Do you have any
Thank you.
questions or points that you wanted to raise that I didn't ask, or any last bits?
I know you led me quite well. We got it.